This is a tutorial on the American Psychological Association style of writing. There are many different styles of writing, and the usage depends on the discipline or field of study in which you are researching and writing. American Psychological Association is used in social science research, Modern Language Association is used in the studies of language and literature, and Chicago style is used in social science and history. APA, MLA, and Chicago serve the same purposes, primarily to give credit where credit is due and to avoid plagiarism. They also serve the purpose of disseminating sources, that is, to provide the reader with information so that they can access those sources as well. If you're reading an article on sustainable energy and the author has utilized 10 sources to help build the paper, you now have 10 other references that you could utilize in order to expand your own knowledge. And then citing sources gives your paper ethos or credibility and logos or logical proof. You will cite a source when quoting an author directly, that is, using the author's exact words, paraphrasing an author or putting the words of an author into your own words, and when information is not widely known. If you are writing a paper on computer science and you anticipate that your audience does not have the extensive knowledge and experience with computers, you might want to incorporate some outside sources into your paper that your audience could utilize as references and to expand their own knowledge on the topic. Here are the three styles juxtaposed. Notice how most of the information is the same, just arranged differently. All will start out with the author's last name. However, in APA, you will utilize only the author's first initial, and the date will go in parentheses right after the author information. When it comes to capitalization of book titles or article titles, you'll capitalize the first word of the title, in this case, the word "the" in the history of pizza in Chicago. And Chicago will always be capitalized as a proper noun, so you'll capitalize it in a title as well. With the capitalization of magazines, newspapers, and journal sources, you will capitalize any pertinent word that is always capitalized in that source's name. So the Wall Street Journal contain words that are always capitalized. In a book source, you will include the author, the publisher's place of publication, which would be a geographic location, and then the publisher's name. However, after the proper noun, the name of the publisher, you will drop or exclude words such as company, organization, corporation, and publishing and publishers. So for instance, Penguin Publishing Company becomes just Penguin. However, maintain the words press and books. Here we have two book references. We have author's last name, Chesnick, first initial, middle initial, date of publication 2007. The Future of Psychoanalysis, you will italicize the titles of books. We have one rule of capitalization, the word "the," no proper nouns in this. And then we have the place of publication. A city inside of the United States, you will spell out the city and abbreviate the state. State University Press is the publisher name, and press is one of those words that we keep included with books. However, drop again, publishing, corporation, publisher, company. The second source has three authors. We have author's last name, comma, first initial, period, comma, and then the second author's information. And in between the ultimate or the last author and the penultimate or second to the last author, we will include an ampersand or the and sign. Criminals in the Making, Criminality Across a Life Course would be the title and the subtitle. So we're going to capitalize the first word of a title, criminals, and the first word of a subtitle, criminality, and we have no proper nouns in this. Thousand Oaks, California is where it's published, and it's very possible that it was Sage Publishers, but we will only keep press and books. Here are two sources which come from a monthly or weekly magazine: author's last name, first initial, middle initial if it's included, year of publication, month if it's included, spelled out, not abbreviated. The Psychology of Facial Expression is the article title, only capitalize the first word, and any proper nouns. We don't see any proper nouns here. Discover is the magazine title. You will italicize it. The volume number reflects or alludes to the number of years in publication. This will be also italicized, and then we have the page numbers. The second author, we've got the ampersand between the second to the last author and the last author. We have a year of publication, month, and a day. Article title, good news. We've got two rules of capitalization: first word of the title, first word of the subtitle. Newsweek is italicized. 146 is the volume and the page number. Here we have the addition of online information, essentially the same, author's last name, the date, we have the article, we have where the article was published in the magazine Time, 170 is the volume number, the issue is 18. There usually are a number of issues within a volume, so it might be volume 170, issue 17, volume 170, issue 18, and so on and so forth. Page 42 and 48. And the words retrieved, and then from, and then the website cut and pasted. Here we have it. Again, another online magazine, author's information, date, article title, the name of the magazine or journal, or in this case it would be the entire website, and the article would be found on a specific web page within the website, the words retrieved and from, and then the web address cut and pasted. Here we have a newspaper. What I want to point out here is that some newspapers have alphabetic sections. So when it says page E2, that means that it's section E, page 2, because newspapers will have section A, section B, section C, or they will have a numeric section like section 1, section 2. So if you have a newspaper that has a numeric section, you need to separate the numeric section number from the page number with a colon. Here we have a reference with no author. We have a reference in dictionary.com. So quinoa is the superfood that I want to reference. And when it comes to finding the publish date or the updated date, you need to scroll down to the bottom of the page in a website in order to find that. And it might say copyright 2010 to 2016. Just put the most recent date. And then in, because we found it in a reference actually, in this case it would be like an encyclopedia or a dictionary, and then the words retrieved and then from. So now let's look at in-text citations and parenthetical citations. So within the text that you're writing for your own paper, when information is quoted or paraphrased, the sentence or paragraph that contains the borrowed information should either begin with an in-text citation or end with a parenthetical citation. So for instance, many citations will begin with according to and then the author's name. Since the author's name is in the sentence and not in parentheses, we'll call it an in-text citation. So according to Kluger, birth order is important in determining personality traits. So this is a paraphrase, but it was found specifically on page 14. Notice how the period goes at the very end of the parenthetical. We could start out with the author's name, Kluger, 2017. Then we need some verb, stated, postulated, found, examined, and then birth order. Here we have a direct quote. Birth order is a salient variable to examine, especially when noting common personality traits among firstborn and subsequent siblings. So we have the quotations around the words itself, but we save the punctuation for the end of the parenthetical. And then the very last one is representative of a parenthetical citation. So knowing birth order, one may be able to, here's a partial quote, which we could do. We don't have to take the entire sentence. Predict personality traits, Kluger, which is the author. We have the year of publication, and then the page number, and then the punctuation. So here's the quinoa citation. So quinoa, a true superfood, is, and then we have the quotation. So the first couple words are me setting up the quote. It is a grain high in nutrients, traditionally grown as a staple in food high in the Andes. So here we have the reference title, like an article title. So if there's no corporate author or an author's name, then you'll use the next best piece of information, which would be the article title, in this case, quinoa. So I want to put it around quotations and then the year of publication. So let's look at some direct quotes and paraphrases. So alluding to the reference of Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidentials, we have the direct quote. He said, "But that soup stayed with me. It resonated, waking me up, making me aware of my tongue, and in some way preparing me for future events." So within quotations, and then the title, or the author, Bourdain, 2000 is year of publication, and found on page 10. Here is a paraphrase of that. So we're going to start out, and this is optional. You could start out with an in-text or end with a parenthetical. So I'm going to start out with an in-text with the author's name in the text. Bourdain, 2000, said that it was a bowl of cold soup that woke up a sense and appreciation for taste. So that was a bowl of vichyssoise. Here we have an in-text citation as a general reference. So I'm not making reference to anything specific in the article. I'm making reference to the entire source, which would be the book. So in Bourdain's book, he writes about his employment in the culinary industry and he vicariously takes readers on a tour of his experiences. And that's basically what the entire book is about. So let's talk about triangulation. A triangle has 3 sides. So when it comes to writing to papers, use at least 3 sources. And think about triangulation as 3 different authors or sources helping to support a thesis or your argument, or create a 3-dimensional view of a subject. So you're explaining something in an expository way. You're explaining Las Vegas in 3 different ways. You're explaining sustainable energy with hydroelectric power, solar power, and wind power. So other APA format details, 12-point font in Times New Roman, double space of text, and indent paragraphs. So let's look at what your paper would look like. So the X's represent your words, and the O's represent words or ideas that are borrowed or paraphrased from your sources. So your introduction would be mostly yours. And as you can see, I have thesis in parentheses because your thesis should be found somewhere in your introduction. Then you have supporting detail 1, where you can see you and your ideas create the topic sentence, introducing the supporting detail. Then you have an in-text citation according to author's last name, year, and then those words. And then the sentences that follow, you are going to be discussing how this is significant to your overall topic. And then your last 2 sentences or last sentence will transition to supporting detail 2, where your words construct the topic sentence. Here you have a paraphrase of an author. And in this case, you have a parenthetical citation where you have whatever those borrowed ideas are, author's last name, your publication, and the page number. And then your words describing how this fits into how this is significant. And then a last sentence in which you are transitioning to supporting detail 3. Here you have a quotation. You actually start out that supporting detail with an author's borrowed words, and then the name of the author, year, publication, the page number, and then the rest of the paragraph, you're describing the significance of that supporting detail number 3. And then here's your conclusion, where you're going to write your own opinions, what its implications on the overall topic were to be, suggestions or recommendations for future study or research. So here would be an example of a reference page. If your teacher requires that you have a header, then you will capitalize the entire title of your paper, unless it's very long. Then you will make an abbreviation for it, and then you'll have the word references. Notice how the references are alphabetized based off of the author's last names. You have the dates all in parentheses, and it doesn't look like there are any website references here. But with references and websites, you will have the words retrieved and then from and then the web address also. For future and further reference, look to Purdue University's OWL, because OWL has information on citations, reference lists. You could go to the sample paper for APA style, and for broader and more extensive information on anything from grammar to writing styles, resume writing, go to the sitemap, because that is a wonderful reference. Thank you very much for your time.